Hey everyone, in this video we're going to take a look at this 2021 BMW 540i. This is the 7th generation of the 5 Series. This generation came out for the 2017 model year and it receives a mid-cycle update here for 2021. The changes consist primarily of slightly updated styling front and rear. This thing also gains a 48-volt mild hybrid system for 2021. That results in a net improvement of about 1 mile per gallon all around, and then it also receives an updated infotainment system, which is apparently a big improvement over the outgoing infotainment system. I've not experienced that one, so I can't really speak to that. We should also maybe go over the hierarchy in the 5 Series line. There are 4 different powertrains available. This is the second of those 4. The base 5 Series is the 530i. It uses a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. This one here, 540i, uses a 3-liter turbocharged inline 6. 540i used to come with a V8. That's not really how it works anymore. One up from that is the M550i, which uses a similar version of the inline 6 found in the 540i, just makes more power. And then at the top of the pile is the M5 that uses a twin turbo V8. This vehicle here makes 335 horsepower. It's plenty quick. I've enjoyed driving it this week. It makes for a pretty great touring car. So on that note, let's take a tour of the 5 Series here and then take it for a drive. We'll start off with the subjective part. I think this thing looks fine. It's not nearly as bad as the design of some other BMWs these days, but all around, 7th generation 5 Series. I've always thought it was an attractive vehicle. This thing is riding on 19-inch wheels that are part of that M Sport package. You can also see it has red calipers with the M logo in them. Up front here, you can see bigger intakes, also as part of the M Sport package. Kidney grille has gotten quite large over the past few years, but not nearly as obnoxious as the grille on some other BMW models. Got this little faux vent right here. Is it a faux vent? No, actually, that's a real vent. Look at that. Oh yeah, that is a real vent. Moving down the side, it's called the Hofmeister kink, I believe. Badging on the back, X-Drive, BMW Roundel, and then 540i, nothing too special there. Power opening trunk. Now that we're in here, you can see that a fair amount of space is taken up by this tier right here. So this is your tow hook to screw in up front if you need a tow, and then here is a screwdriver. And that's actually a little storage cubby. Did not expect to find that in here. You could put towels, you could put a first aid kit in there. You could actually store some things in there. Who would have guessed? But the trunk itself isn't exactly huge for a mid-size touring car like this. I would have expected a little bit more space this way. It's taken up by these things, but still you've got a decent amount of space front to back here, and then you can also put the second row seats down via these levers here. Power closing trunk. Wow, that is both smooth and fast. Okay, let's take a look at the window sticker. So this is a 2021 BMW 540i X-Drive. As equipped, it comes in at $77,935, including a $995 destination fee. So this one is pretty well equipped. I think it's what many people would end up with if they were buying a 5 Series. So you've got higher end Napa leather. It's got a lot of packages. That's a thing with BMW. They advertise a relatively low base price, and then if you want things like radar cruise control and heated seats, that price is going to increase by $10,000 to $20,000, as it has in this case. But you've got driving assistance plus package, the dynamic handling package, the luxury seating package, the M Sport package, the parking assistance package, the premium package, a heated steering wheel for just $190. That's surprisingly low. M Sport brakes with red calipers, those are $650. And then the only other thing is that destination charge for $995. That brings the total total price to $77,935. EPA rates this thing at 23 city, 31 highway, and 26 combined. This is where that 48-volt mild hybrid system comes into play. I would not describe this vehicle as a hybrid. That 48-volt is not quite the same thing as the hybrid system that's in a Prius. Without getting into the technical details, but what it does do is, relative to 2020, it nets you 1 additional MPG city, 2 additional MPG highway, and 1 additional MPG combined. So as for the interior in the 5 Series, it's definitely premium. All the materials feel high-end. Construction feels definitely top-notch. No hard plastics on the door panel here. Top of the dashboard is a soft touch material. You can see the infotainment screen kind of sits on top of the dashboard. That helps to keep the overall height of the dashboard relatively low. Moving over here, you can see some textures in this trim right here. It's like a cross texture. The seating color is interesting. This is a Napa leather and it's called mocha. It's like a brown, and then you can see there are beige inserts and beige contrast stitching there. I can see there's also diamond stitching on the seat backs there. Controls are laid out well enough, I guess. My one criticism with this interior though is that it just feels a little bit busy. It feels like there are all these different shapes and angles and surfaces just for the sake of having different shapes and angles and surfaces. Mercedes-Benz has moved to a really simple and minimalist interior design recently, and I don't think that really helps things here, because compared to what Mercedes-Benz is doing, the 5 Series and BMW's design language as a whole, at least when it comes to interiors, feels a generation behind. That said though, the digital gauge cluster is pretty nice, as is the infotainment system. I think it's fine. Another thing that's kind of bugging me is much of the control of the infotainment system comes from this dial here, which is fine. It's also a touchscreen, but the one thing that is still on the dashboard is this volume knob here. So I'm finding myself, you're using the touchscreen, you're using this control here, both of those are fine, but if I want to adjust the volume, I'm randomly having to reach up to the dashboard here, and that's the only reason I'm really touching the dashboard, at least as far as infotainment goes. BMW has held on to this preset array of buttons here for a long time now, and I just don't really see a need for it. It just seems like this whole section of the dashboard is wasted space, given that, you know, the only real necessary thing here is the volume knob, and I think that should be located somewhere like here or here. Anyway though, beyond that, hey, we're fine. This is pretty standard BMW. It's nothing revolutionary. Steering wheel, again, it feels a little bit muted. That's another thing with this interior, is many of the surfaces are very flat. Even the screen on the infotainment system is a very flat finish. Same with the gauge cluster screen here, same with the trim on the steering wheel. It's actually a gloss finish, but it's like a flat color underneath. Steering wheel itself also very flat. You can see this leather here is a very muted gray, as is the leather around the wheel. So that's another thing that's going on with this interior. Everything just feels a little bit dull and a little bit busy. But it's still a BMW 5 Series. They've certainly not cheapened out on anything. Let's take a look at some of the drive modes here. So this is where you adjust the driving modes. So you've got comfort, that's kind of your default setting, I guess. It's a balanced setting. There's also a sport mode. So the gauge cluster changes a little bit in sport mode. You can see it comes up on the infotainment screen there. There's an Eco Pro mode, which it says is the fuel efficient setting, and it changes some of the colors to blue in the gauge cluster. And then there's an adaptive mode, which says predictive adjustment of vehicle setting for the driving situation. Wireless charging pad ahead of the cup holders here. This whole area has a lid over it. Inside the center console box, it opens like that. Not a ton of storage. There is a USB-C port. There's a USB-A port ahead of the wireless charger there. Not a whole lot of other connectivity options up front here. let's check out the second row. So now that we're in the second row of the 5 Series here, you can see there's a decent amount of space. I don't feel cramped at all back here. I've got plenty of knee room. I'm noticing that the back of the driver's seat and the passenger seat are very broad. This feels like about the widest seat back I think I can recall from any vehicle. There are map pockets on the backs of both seats. Looks like there are some little, there's a deep storage compartment there where you could put something like your phone, and then a really shallow storage compartment there. HVAC vents on the back of the center console, though there are no independent controls back here. That's something I noticed right away. USB-C ports, 2 of them actually, and then a 12-volt outlet and a little 12-volt outlet cap that you can lose. But like I said, no heated seats back here. I was a little bit surprised. On the armrest, there are cup holders. Kind of unnecessarily complicated cup holder design, if you ask me, but I'm afraid to close that too aggressively. Overhead, there are lights. There's kind of a hump right here. That's odd. Sunroof up top, just a normal sunroof, although for a regular old sunroof, it's a pretty big one. And then over here, you've got grab handles, and on the door, not much else. Power one touch up and down. Although there is plenty of room back here, there's a pretty high hump. Actually like a really high hump. I guess that's a rear-wheel drive platform though for you. I think that about covers the second row. Yeah, there's plenty of space for 2 people back here, but with this hump, I think it would be a little bit cramped with a third. Okay, 2021 540i xDrive. This is definitely an excellent touring sedan. I think I'd be comfortable behind the wheel of this thing for 4, 5, 6 hours. It's quick too, 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds. To me, anything under 5 I consider very fast. There's 50 plus. Very smooth. The transmission is smooth. The acceleration is smooth. The suspension is very smooth. Definitely checks all those boxes. I don't really have anything to criticize with the way this car drives. You've got these different driving modes. We are in adaptive mode right now. Let's go into sport mode. So downshifted, things got a little bit louder and the gauge cluster got redder. Still really smooth acceleration there. Steering wheel feels pretty good. It's a thick wheel, which is nice. Leather feels good. There's a little bit of a squish to it, which I always like. Not a flat bottom or anything. You do get paddle shifters, 8-speed automatic transmission. Even the engine's really quiet. It's a really muted engine note. So as everybody knows, the 5 Series #1 competitor would be the Mercedes-Benz E-Class. 540i here would be cross-shopped with the Mercedes-Benz E450. That vehicle makes about 30 additional horsepower and 30 more pounds-feet of torque than the 540i here though. Then there's also the Audi A6. I've not driven the A6. I've driven the E450 and I really like that vehicle. As I mentioned, Mercedes-Benz interiors just feel really cutting edge. They're super modern. They are pretty minimalist, which I like. Their infotainment and gauge cluster layout are just super sharp, super smooth. And I think for that reason, the 5 Series here feels a little bit dated still. The E-Class received an update for this year as well, I believe. So as far as their update and redesign schedules go, the 2 vehicles are pretty much on par with one another, but still the E-Class interior just feels more special than this. This design language in the 5 Series here is just a little bit scattered. Coming up on our speed bumps here, we'll hit this first one at, let's do 25 miles per hour. Wow, very planted, barely felt it. That's a pretty small one. Second one we will do at about 25 as well. Again, really smooth. Kind of felt a little clunking in the trunk area. Not violent or anything, but you could hear something back there. And then this third one is a little bit bigger. Why don't we do it at 27? Yeah, the car itself felt super planted. I just heard something in the trunk. So that is your look at the 2021 BMW 540i xDrive. This thing drives really, really nice. If you want a vehicle that you're going to look forward to driving every day, this thing will definitely check that box. The transmission, the acceleration, the suspension, everything is extremely smooth. Quick to 0 to 60 in 4.9 seconds. That's fast, and that's from only 335 horsepower as well. This thing's down about 30 horsepower to the Mercedes-Benz E450, but either way, I mean, powertrain and driving dynamics of the 540i here are quite excellent. The interior it's up to par. It doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel half-baked, but it just feels a little bit busy. We've seen cracks in the armor when it comes to BMW design recently, but that's mainly involved the exteriors of vehicles, and I'm not talking about the 5 Series. Just some of their other new models have looked a little bit ridiculous, for lack of a better term. But that's not the case at all with the 5 Series. The exterior on this thing is very much subdued. I think it looks good, but the interior feels just a little bit busy. It feels like they had a design and then they added to it, and then they added to it again, and then they changed it a little bit, and then they added to it a third time. I kind of feel like they need a clean slate when it comes to interior design. But that said, infotainment is fine, although I wish the volume knob was on the center console. I think that would make a lot more sense. The digital gauge cluster here looks great. Steering wheel feels pretty good. So beyond just the scattered design and somewhat muted overall palette, you know, the interior in this thing is definitely premium luxury car grade. So on that note, I think that covers the 540i here. Thank you for watching.